So welcome. We're talking about trading diamonds safely. This is a topic that's become increasingly important to our industry. We're having increasing digitalization of the way we trade, a lot of internet trading, a lot of online business going on, and a lot of scams and frauds are coming up. So RapNet, which is the world's largest diamond trading network, it's an online portal which thousands and thousands of people use. We think it's which is a division of the Rappaport Group, and it's the division I'm in charge of. Thinks it's important to have sessions like these, to educate people, to get the message out about how you can protect yourself, and what RapNet's doing to help you protect yourself in your trading. So my name is Saville Stern. I'm in charge of the RapNet division of the Rappaport Group. And what we want to discuss today is exactly that, how you can protect yourself and how you can minimize the risks. For those of you that weren't in Martin's presentation, the Rappaport Group has got a very strong values-based approach to how we do our business. The underlined lines, the ethical, transparent, competitive, efficient markets, that's essentially our value system. And everything we do is geared towards that. And RapNet, which is the trading network, has all those elements in there. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. I don't want to belabor the point because I think everybody here was either at Martin's presentation or knows the Rappaport Group a bit. Next year, I think the group will be 40 years old. So it started in 1978. So next year we'll be 40 years old. We've got 7 offices around the world in 5 countries, 2 in the United States. Clients in 80 or 90, it says 121 countries, but from a RapNet point of view, we're going to get into a bit later, it's a couple of less countries. And we've got a lot of divisions, information, price sheets, news, RapNet, of course, which we'll discuss in a minute, diamond grading and certification. In some cases, we're agents for other grading laboratories like the GA, AGS, HRD, and we're also doing our own grading, which Martin spoke about, of certificates on top of the GAA. We do auctions and trading services, and there's one new division which I haven't put on there, which is very new, launched at the show, which is Rappaport Education. And we're starting to do some educational courses for the trade, and our first course is the fundamentals of diamond trading, and that I would recommend anybody who has staff members who may need a bit of training in addition to the gemological expertise and wants to know about trading, the kind of things we do on RapNet, the kind of things that some people have been doing for years and years. This is a course worth doing. RapNet. RapNet's got members in 94 countries. This was taken from, I think, yesterday. 1.3 million diamonds listed in any one day. It's a lot of diamonds, worth $7.7 billion. A lot of choice, a lot of diamonds, a lot of availability. 140,000 searches a day. People are looking for diamonds actively all the time. And it's this trading network that I wanted to speak a little bit about today, in addition to our discussion about trading diamonds safely, because a lot of the trading happens on RapNet, and this is where people need to really protect themselves. I just wanted to start off with a bit of a thank you, so we don't only leave it till the end. First of all, to Sherry Hendricks and her entire Las Vegas staff, who really work hard putting together this Vegas show. Besides Martin's presentation, which is very large, and then the other 3 that are happening here today, we run 3 booths at the show, 2 at JCK and 1 at Antique. It's a large logistical operation. But not only do Sherry and her team run the Las Vegas the show, but all through the year they're doing customer service for our American market, which is and they do a great job. So I just wanted to thank Sherry and her team. And then from the Israel team, our marketing and operations people, especially Johnny and Bensi, who are probably here wandering around as well, who put a lot of effort into getting everything ready for the show and in general during the year. So I just wanted to make sure before I started that we thank people. Okay, scams, threats, and what's going on. Let's start with a simple one. Let's talk about Nigerian scams, which are nothing to do with us. They're very famous. Everybody knows about them. These are this kind of scams you get where you get an email saying, hi, I'm the prince of some African country, and I've got lots of money, and I just need you to give me a little bit of your money, and then you can get lots of my money. And everyone knows that it's nonsense, but they only know now. The basic idea of the Nigerian scam is to take a gullible person and part them from their money. And there's different ways of doing it. This is not an internet scam. This started in 1920s, I think was the earliest one, with a letter that was sent out to hundreds of people from some guy in Nigeria who said he had magical powers and he could sort of do magic on people if you just give them the name and give them a bit of money. But this one I'm putting on the screen, I like the best. I think it's reached its pinnacle. And so I wanted to read you some of it, if you can't read it from there. Basically, the guy says he's Dr. Bakore Tunde, cousin of a Nigerian astronaut. He was the first astronaut, and in 1979, he flew up for the first time, and in 1989, he went with a secret Soviet military space station to space, and they left him there. He was stranded there in 1990 when the Soviet Union was dissolved, and all the other astronauts made it back, but they needed his place for cargo, so he got stuck there. But he's in good humor. We don't have to worry about that, but he does want to come home. And in the 14 years that he's been at the space station, he's got $15 million in back pay that's accumulated in his account. And if he can just have a bit of that money, they could pay for his return journey. But don't worry, he's been supplied by some supply drops that they've made. And so he's had food for the last 14 years. So this letter went out, when was this? It started in 1990. So 2004 was it's a relatively recent thing. And it's going to cost $3 million to get him down. But if you can get $3 million, you can have part of his $15 million. Consequently, my colleagues and I are willing to transfer the total amount, blah, 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 blah. Nobody believes this. In fact, if you do believe it, you're exactly the person they want. Because they try and make these scams so outrageous, so ridiculous, that only gullible people will bother responding to them because they don't want intelligent people giving them a hard time. They want stupid people who are prepared to say, yeah, that makes sense. So let me give you some of my money to get the bigger prize. It's basically, these scams are made for gullible people. Anybody responding to that kind of scam is a great, hot, qualified lead for them. It's somebody that they know they can make. And we all know we wouldn't fall for something that simple. And we get them all the time. I'm sure people get those kind of scams all the time, if not quite to the level of the astronaut. You still get all sorts of scams. But they're getting more sophisticated. And even intelligent, wary people are falling for some of the new scams that are coming through. And there are now some scams that are not originating in our industry, but are targeting our industry. And I want to talk about a couple of them today, as well as give you some practical tips. When I'm finished a few minutes of speaking here, I'm going to invite Troy to the stage. Troy is a cybersecurity expert, and I'll introduce him when we get there. And he'll speak for a few minutes, and then we're going to have a short panel discussion with some of our industry leaders who can say what's happening in their sections of the industry and how they're advising clients and members and what's going on. We're getting to see a lot more sophisticated setups when it comes to scamming. And they're a combination of social engineering, which I'll explain in a few minutes, and cyber attacks. I'm not going to go deeply into how they work, but I do want to explain what these concepts are. Social engineering is a concept which says, I know a little bit about you, and so by showing you I know a little bit about you, I get you to tell me more about you. And maybe I'll trick you to tell me your password or something else. So maybe I go on your Facebook page and I know what your dog's name is. And because I know what your dog's name is, you tell me what your birthday is. And when I know your dog's name and your birthday, I can kind of guess 3 of your passwords. Or I'm pretending to be someone else and you open up to me. That's a kind of social engineering, is a way to get people to do things which they wouldn't normally do by some sort of, I would say, subtle trickery. It's not new. But it is being used on the internet to get into people's information that people want private, like their passwords, like their email accounts, etc. Hacking and phishing. Hacking, I think everybody knows what it is. Somebody breaks into your computer system, which you didn't want to happen, and they control whatever it is they want to control. Phishing is sometimes the precursor to hacking. Phishing is when people send out, let's say, a mass email saying, your RapNet account has been suspended. If you don't log in now and answer these questions, you're going to be thrown off the network. You get this email, you press the link, takes you to a page that looks like the RapNet page. You put in your username and password, you press login, and it takes you back to the home page of RapNet. You think something didn't work, so you log in again. But that page that it took you to wasn't the real RapNet page. That was some other person's page, and it was designed to take your username and password from you. Now they have your email address, they have your username and password, and they can do anything they want with that. First of all, they can go into your RapNet account. Not so terrible. But maybe you use your RapNet password also for your email, and also for your bank account, and also for your Facebook. And once that starts, the intrusion into your life has begun. And we've seen this in real life. There's been phishing attacks on our clients in RapNet. In fact, the most recent one I dealt with was people got an email similar to the one I described where it said, your account's going to be locked out, log in. Some people did it. Other people realized it was a scam and that this is not an email RapNet would send out, or when they got to the page, they saw that it was, the URL, the page address was wrong. But they logged in. So what we did was we looked at the URL and we tried to track down the server which was hosting this page. It was a server in Dubai, and the website belonged to a furniture manufacturer. So I phoned the furniture manufacturer, which is quite interesting because to phone Dubai from Israel is an interesting concept. I phoned the guy and I said to him, listen, your server's doing that. What are you doing? You're a furniture. And he didn't know what I was talking about. Turned out his server hadn't been protected from intrusions, and some hacker had come on and put a page up on his server without him knowing, using it, put up that phishing page, took RapNet usernames and password. Anyway, eventually he got his IT people to take down the page, and we managed to contain the attack to only a few people who'd lost their information and had to then change their passwords. But that goes on, and once that happens, maybe they'll get into your email, maybe they'll watch what you're doing. That's what phishing is. Stealing passwords by tricking you into giving it yourself. So this happens. It's not unique to our industry. It's not unique to our industry, but it's going on in our industry more and more. We're a high-value target. We deal in high-value goods. There's a lot of money flowing around, and a lot of money in our industry moves on the basis of the way we trade historically, which is I know you, you know me. We trade a lot of money quite easily. Which is getting to be a problem as these hackers and scammers and thieves and liars try and get more into our industry. Now, look, we're not strangers to scams in our industry. We've had a lot of issues, and whenever there's money, there's going to be thieves. Today, I'm not talking about the normal, if you want, scams that you see in our industry. Simulants posing as real diamonds, or forged certificates that you see sometimes, or synthetics being passed off as real diamonds. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm trying to focus here today on how we can trade and the interaction between us in trading safer, and especially on internet trading. I think just the other day, an amusing press release, or it was amusing to me at least, was released by Ada Diamonds, which are they're a synthetics only jewelry manufacturer, and their whole selling proposition is we don't deal in natural diamonds, we deal in synthetics only, and they talk about the ethical and moral and whatever their value proposition is for the synthetic. And they were horrified to find out that real diamonds got into their supply chain somehow. So while we're all talking about how we don't want synthetics to be peppered into our natural supply chain, they were horrified to find the other way around, that real diamonds, natural diamonds, got into their synthetic supply chain, that some supplier had given them a bunch of melee with synthetic diamonds. So these kind of scams and things we're not strangers to. As far as RapNet goes, we have a lot of reports of different things. We don't see so much bait and switch. We don't see on RapNet too many people saying they promised me this diamond but delivered me that diamond, or the certificate said X and I got Y. That doesn't happen so much. People who are trading protect their reputations, want to do repeat trade, want to carry on doing business, and want to have a good reputation. So we don't see that much bait and switch where the goods aren't represented properly. We do see a little bit of straight-out fraud, people cutting HPHT diamonds to match an existing GA certificate, 2, 3, 4, 5 carats, selling you the diamond, which matches in weight and mostly in measurements, but just isn't the same diamond that the GA graded. That's happened a little bit. I think the worst case I saw recently was a 3.5 carat Type 2A D flawless, which even had a letter from the GA. Just didn't quite match. The letter was 1 or 2 points off from what the diamond was, and the guy said he recut it. So the new buyer sent it, after paying, sent it to the GA for an update of the certificate, and they said, it's HPHT, it's not the original diamond, it's a fraudulent engraving, inscription on the girdle. So that happens, and that's happening, I think, with increasing frequency, that desperate people are resorting to cutting HPHT diamonds to match existing certificates, and the GAs reacted to that in various ways. So these kind of scams do happen. But the two scams that I wanted to speak to you about today are the most prevalent, the most upsetting from a trading point of view, and the quickest way to lose money. I want to explain to you what these two scams are, just so that everybody's aware of them. And I want to explain to you maybe how to prevent it from happening to you. Let's talk about the first one, which I'll call the invoice modification scheme. I don't really have a good word for it, so that's one I made up. But the FBI describes it in one of their public service announcements as a sophisticated scam targeting businesses, often working with foreign suppliers or that regularly perform wire transfer payments. That's us. The scam is carried out by compromising legitimate business email accounts through social engineering or computer intrusion, like I spoke about phishing, to conduct unauthorized transfer of funds. What happens in the scam that we're seeing? Two companies start a trading discussion, often initiated on RapNet, but not necessarily. Excuse me. And then carry on talking via email. Sometimes they just start via email. And as the transaction nears a close, or even maybe just soon after it's initiated, somehow the email of the supplier or the buyer is subverted, and emails start coming in from an email address looking very similar to the original email address, but from this thief. And they're talking the diamond language, and the guy says, can you do 38 below? No, I can't, but I'll give you free shipping. And they go backwards and forwards until the buyer says, okay, mazal. And the guy says, here's an invoice, send me money. And you send money, and then you don't hear from anyone. So eventually you phone the seller and you say, where's my diamond? He goes, what diamond? We haven't been talking. What are you talking about? I haven't been discussing. We didn't have any deal. And he says, yeah, look, I sent you. Here's your invoice. I sent you money. He goes, I don't have a bank in China. And that's what we've been seeing. And we've been seeing a lot of it. Over the last 3 years, I've been seeing it happen, but it's starting to happen more and more now. And when I approached the FBI to discuss this, they said to me, listen, welcome to the world. This is happening all over the place in every industry. Don't think that you guys are unique. But they've stumbled onto your world, and it's a rich world, and there's lots of money going around. So here we go. That's one version of the scam, and it's happening a lot. And where we're seeing it a lot is Indian suppliers, American or non-Indian buyers, with a bank in a third country like England or Romania or China. So they take a supplier from here, a buyer from there, a bank over there, and every police force says, well, it's not me. The money was stolen over there. No, well, the money was deposited over there. Well, the guy who lost the money was over there. So we've been talking to different police forces, and everyone's saying, it's not us, talk to them. So we haven't really had a lot of assistance from law enforcement. What RapNet does when we get a case like this reporter does is we report it to the FBI. We've tried to talk to the banks and said, but you opened an account for the thief and you wired money. And the bank says, well, you're not my customer. I'm not talking to you. We've got secrecy rules, whatever. It's a very difficult situation. And the FBI is saying to us, well, the best thing to do is to report it. I said, well, what do you do with those reports? Well, we use it for our statistics. So, we're not getting anywhere, and really we have to look after ourselves. These invoice modification schemes have the following common characteristics very often. So this is what you've got to look out for. First of all, often they target businesses using these free email accounts, gmail.com, mail.com, Hotmail, mail.ru, all these free email accounts that let you create free emails. You don't protect them enough, and the passwords are quite easy to break into with a bit of social engineering. It's been very often, I would say, I don't know, more than, in fact, I can only remember 2 out of the 30 or 40 cases that I've looked at where it wasn't a free email account involved, where it was actually the corporate account was hacked. Spoofed emails, which means an email that looks very like the legitimate, like the original one. So it looks like it's coming from me, but actually it's coming from someone else, and there's maybe a letter different in the email address, or my email may be savile@diamonds.net, so they'll do savilediamonds@mail.net. It will just look kind of very close. Hacked email accounts almost always, and you don't know you've been hacked, and in fact, to this day, most of the suppliers who've been hacked assert that there's absolutely no way that they could have been hacked, and they've got the best security in the world, and they've checked themselves again. It just happens that 5 of their best suppliers got false invoices, of their best buyers got false invoices from them and paid to some bank in China. These thieves know the language of the trade. In fact, to the point where I think either they have assistance from people in the trade or they're in the trade themselves. They talk the talk very, very well. And one way you can kind of see that it's a thief is then they don't answer your questions. You say, has it got fluorescence? And they say, send me the money. And you say, can I see the cert again? And they say, when are you going to transfer the money? So one of the ways you can see is where they push very fast towards the deal without answering questions. That we see quite a lot. And I see these email exchanges and I marvel afterwards at how is it possible that you're saying, I'm interested in the diamond, but I need to answer these 3 questions. And the guy says, okay, send me the money. And you say, okay, here's the money. People give up on their questions and just pay, and pay a lot of money. The biggest scam that I saw was for $60,000. The biggest successful scam. The biggest unsuccessful one was for $200,000 or $300,000, but the bank caught that and said, this doesn't look right, are you sure? And the guy says, what do you mean we're sending money there? My supplier's there. What happens very often is the owner of the business approves for payment the deal, but doesn't check exactly all the details of where the bank is, and the admin person in their office is about to send off the wire and doesn't check. It said the deal's okay, here's the invoice, I'm sending the money to China. Yeah, I know the supplier's in India, and I've been dealing with them for 20 years and paying their India account, but he asked me to pay China, so why not? And as I said, they use a triangular setup where the supplier, one case, one country, a buyer in another country, and the bank account in a third country. Here's an example of an email that people have been getting. Our bank account in India is undergoing a tax audit, so we can't access the funds, so please transfer the payment to our bank in China so we don't hold up shipping. Well, that's reasonable. We all live in an industry where we do these things all the time. No, it's not reasonable. You get an invoice, you should pay the country, or at least the country where your supplier is. Normally they have a bank account at least in the city where they are. That's not reasonable. But we do have companies with international operations, and maybe they say, pay me here, pay me there. We have to be a bit more vigilant. We have to look out for these scams. We have to watch the email addresses. We have to watch the warning signs of people pushing you towards payment. We have to look at the invoice for reasonableness. Because don't forget, they've hacked this guy's emails. They've got his invoices from the past. They just take a past invoice. It looks very legitimate, and all they change is the bank account details. All they change. That's the first scam, and there have been at least 20 or 30 cases over the last couple of years that have been reported to us, and I'm sure we don't get all the reports of all the cases. There's another scam which I didn't want to talk about today, but I will mention it because it's very similar to this invoice scam, which is not really so much diamond related, but it's happening in the world, and I just wanted you to be aware of it. They're sending out emails saying, hi, I'm the CEO of the company, to the controller of your company, and saying, wire money to this account. I need it to move today. We've had that in our company. People have emailed our financial controller sitting in an office in Las Vegas say, hi, it's Martin Rappaport. I need $40,000 moved today to this account. Please confirm when you do it. And the email comes from Martin Rappaport because they've spoofed the address. It looks like it. And if you don't have proper internal controls, well, you may wire out $40,000 to some account. I know that's happened to companies in our industry in New York for large amounts. And there may be people here today who can talk on that issue a little bit more. That's the kind of scam that happens when people break into your emails, phishing, social engineering, get your passwords, etc. That's the invoice modification scam or scheme. I want to talk about another one, which for simplicity's sake I'm calling impersonating a retailer. But it could be impersonating anybody, or a dealer even. And what happens here, and this definition is not supplied by the FBI, is it's a complicated scam which involves somebody impersonating a buyer. They alter the usual shipping address, and they ask you to ship your high-value merchandise, your jewelry or your diamonds, whatever, to that shipping address. They use national, international carriers like DHL, UPS, FedEx. And shipments are either sent to the thieves directly and then they disappear, or they're redirected by the thieves once in transit. Examples of this could be they phone a well-known supplier that started in Georgia in the United States, but moved very quickly to New York as well. They phone a well-known supplier, pretending to be a buyer from one of their clients, and they say, please ship me the 3 carats, and they give the right parameters for a real existing 3-carat diamond in the supplier's inventory. And you know the supplier, you do business with them, they're in good standing with you, so you ship them the 3-carat. Yeah, just ship it to this other address because I'm not at my office right now. Okay. So they ship it to this other address, which is an abandoned house or whatever, and FedEx brings it there. The thieves say, thank you very much, and your 3-carat disappears. This is happening over and over again. So people have got wiser to it a little bit, and now they say, no, we check now that we only ship to the actual address of my client. Okay, but if I phone FedEx and I know the tracking number, I can redirect that parcel. Yeah. Unless you ship maybe through Brinks FedEx or one of these combination secure shippers who say, no, you can't change the address unless you phone the head office in wherever it is to, and they know who you are, and then you can maybe change the destination address. Okay, so you don't change the destination address. So the thief waits outside at the entranceway for the FedEx guy and takes delivery in the driveway. That's what's happening. The scam's evolving over time. First it was shipped to this residential house. Then we got wise to that. So it was, okay, no, ship to the actual place, but we managed to redirect the FedEx parcel or go to the FedEx depot to pick it up. Now they're saying, okay, no, ship to the original place. We'll just kind of hang around the entranceway and pretend that we're an employee. That's happening. Lots of money. 4-carat diamond that I know of, at least in the not-so-distant past, was stolen. Very legitimate sounding people. Again, it's a bit of social engineering going on. They sound like your client. They know what diamonds you have in stock. They know enough to pass themselves off as your client. And this is not unique, again, to our industry, but it's happening to us. This is physical stuff. This isn't about you transferring money. This is about you actually shipping diamonds. So we need shipping policies in place before we ship, how we ship, what kind of methods we use for shipping, the kind of insurance we have. So that's something we need to address. The impersonation scheme has these attributes. Again, very convincing, very polite people. They speak the language of the trade. They always dangle a kind of bigger hook. Send me the 3-carat and then I'll look at the 4-carat later. So there's a good reason for you to send it. They know who they're dealing with. They've done research on you. They know the supplier. They're not just cold calling, as it were. They know who they're dealing with. They know what diamonds you've got. They know how to pretend to be your customer. These are people who've researched a little bit and what I call social engineering. Often these calls coincide with business travel dates of the owner or of the normal person in charge. In other words, the person who might be most likely to catch this is away, and the staff in the office are dealing with a lot of the calls. That happens quite often. And, we wouldn't fall for scams like this. Or maybe we would. You know, in the Nigerian scam that I spoke about, none of us would fall for something as obvious as that. But what's the latest incarnation of the Nigerian scams? They go on dating sites. They write profiles of themselves, often pretending to be military personnel posted in various places around the world. In fact, there's even a website that you can check to see whether the person on the dating site is actually the military person that they say they are, because the scam is so well known. And you know, people are on these dating sites, they're talking to each other, they form a relationship with them. Maybe they even send each other flowers. And this is an actual scam that happened. This lady was talking to this man for a few months. He was in a different country. She was in America. He sent her flowers. They had a relationship going. And eventually, he agreed to come fly to meet her. He's on his way to meet her, but he says, listen, before I meet you, I've just got to go with my son to Nigeria, where he's got a job in the oil industry, and settle him down there, and then I'll come through to you. Well, he got to Nigeria, this poor guy, and he was involved in a terrible accident. And they took all his money, and he was in hospital, and he asked her for some money so that he could pay for his hospital fees and get a plane ticket out of there. Well, he sent her flowers. Wouldn't you help him out with the money? So you send him the money, and then he says, well, I need a little bit more because they won't release me, whatever. And then eventually he asked her to come to Nigeria to help him, and then she was held captive until her family paid a ransom to get her back. That's what happens when, you know, so I'm saying these scams evolve. These scams, you know, I might be caught in something, if I was on a dating site, I might have been caught in something like that. The Nigerian prince or the astronaut wouldn't have caught me, but you know, the scams are getting more sophisticated, more evolved. We have to know what to do and how to protect ourselves. We don't know the full extent of the problem. RapNet has only had about 30 cases reported to us. Most of the cases reported to us have been in the invoice modification scheme kind of case. Most of the people who are involved in the physical diamond shipping to other addresses are not reporting the cases to us. They're dealing with it through their own insurances, and there's not much we can do other than announce it, report it, and educate. And that's what we do. So we know that at least $400,000 has been stolen, that we know of. I estimate that the real amount stolen is probably 3 times that so far, and that's just with RapNet members that have been caught in these scams. Not through RapNet, but they just happen to be RapNet members who report things to us. So what can we do? First of all, the bad news is there's no magic cure. The scam industry is like any other. It innovates. Just like I said to you, the Nigerian prince or astronaut is a simple scheme that wouldn't catch most of us. But the dating site, well, it's getting a little bit more sophisticated. The guy who sends you an invoice after you've negotiated with them and agreed on a deal and then sends you an invoice, well, it's kind of, you know, looks like legitimate. The customer who says to you, please send me the 4 carat to my address, looks legitimate. So they're innovating. So how do we protect ourselves? Well, there are 3 main thrusts to protection. One is cybersecurity. Get yourself as safe as you can on the internet, because you can't isolate yourself and live like a hermit. We are in the internet. We're going to be emailing. We're going to be using communication devices like WhatsApp. We all carry cell phones. Just to make your cybersecurity as good as you can. Practice a lot of vigilance and common sense. And essentially, that's been true forever, before the internet as well. Common sense, vigilance. And then practice safe trading methods, which we'll discuss in a minute. So let me talk about cybersecurity first. First of all, the question isn't how to protect yourselves from being broken into by some sort of cyber criminal. Take it as a given that you're hackable and that you will be hacked. And rather work out, I mean, obviously protect yourselves as much as you can against it, but rather work out how long is it before you're going to find that you've been attacked? How much damage can the people do when they get in? And how do you react to it? Because you've got to assume, I mean, Target, how many credit card numbers did they lose? These people, you know, Target isn't exactly a mom and pop jewelry store that doesn't have the money to protect itself. They've got the government gets hacked. There've been a lot of high-profile hacking cases, and then people's credit card numbers and social security numbers are posted on the internet and are sold to the highest bidder in the dark net. So it's not about, it's a given that you'll be hacked. The question is, how much damage will it cause, and how long before you detect it? And once you detect it, what do? How do you deal with it swiftly and decisively? You talk to your clients and say, we've been hacked. Please, I'm changing my passwords. Don't respond to any emails you may get from me. No, I don't want to say to that to my clients. Maybe they'll think something, but let me just rather not do anything about it, and we'll deal with the fallout as it comes. And then suddenly 20 of your clients tell you that they've got these false invoices. You've got to be decisive. You've got to be open about it, and you've got to react swiftly. And you've got to try and move to minimize the damage as soon as you find out. And more importantly, you have to find out. It's possible that people are being hacked and that people are sitting in their systems and nobody knows. And I think that's happening to a lot of these suppliers who claim we're unhackable. We've tested every security thing we have. I don't know how the guy got a false invoice from me. It must be that he's hacked. Or it must be that RapNet's hacked. And I say to the guy, but you realize it came from an email. It didn't come from RapNet. Somebody emailed you an invoice. He says, yes, but my 5 buyers who got the invoices, all 5 of them are hacked. It can't be me. And I'm saying, what do you mean it can't be you? It must be you. If 5 invoices went to 5 buyers, all from you. So it can't be me. We've got an antivirus on, the free one that I downloaded from the internet. So I'm saying, you've got to find out. You've got to be able to protect yourself. I'm not going to go too much into the cybersecurity. That's more Troy's realm, and he'll be dealing with it in a few minutes. Vigilance and common sense. Take extra precaution, especially in the case of first-time customers, especially when something differs from the norm. Bank addresses change. Physical delivery address changes. Something isn't according to your normal protocols. A client asks for something out of the ordinary. Similar to the red flags that you see when we look at the Anti-Money Laundering Patriot Act compliance. This transaction looks fishy, or maybe it is, and investigate it a bit further. Make a call to the buyer or the seller before you actually transfer a lot of money. That's what we're recommending to everybody. You can't trust emails. Emails are inherently insecure. Make a call. No, maybe make a code word with your supplier or your buyer and say, listen, when we talk over the phone, this is a code word we use, and then you know it's okay to transfer the money. People do this. I'm not making this up. Check bank wire information. A lot of the frauds that we've seen with banks, with the invoice modification scheme, have had banks in the US with account names very similar to the Indian supplier that supposedly sent the invoice. So let's say it would be, I don't know, Indian Impex Limited is the name of the company. So the name of the bank account would be, Joe Smith - India Impex Limited. That's the bank account they would open up in an American bank, and money would get sent there and disappear. So look for things that are out of the ordinary that don't match exactly what you're looking for. Only transfer money to a bank located in the same city as the seller. Don't transfer money to a bank somewhere else, even if the seller says, it's fine. Say, no, this is how we do business. Anything else that's out of the ordinary, check with the seller. What can RapNet do? We've got a couple of initiatives. The first thing we do is we educate. We educate by posting blogs, by having seminars like this, by making announcements, by making available on our website a security and safety center. And we're also investing large sums of money in an upgraded, more secure network that I wanted to speak about in a few minutes, which I'll just give you the beginning of, explain to you what we're about to roll out in the coming months, and then I'll hand it over to Troy. The first thing we're doing on RapNet is two-factor authentication. What is two-factor authentication? First of all, a login and a password is not sufficient to protect your identity. Like we said, social engineering, people can guess it. So two-factor authentication says like this. There are normally 3 factors in the world of security to identify you. One thing is something you know, for example, your password. You know your password. Something is something you have, like you have your cell phone with you, you have your mobile phone, or you have a dongle, or you have a chip, or you have something you have. And the third thing is something you are, like your fingerprint or your iris scan. Those are 3 of the factors that are used to often identify people. In high security cases, sometimes all 3 are used, and sometimes even other factors like whatever. But there are 3 factors: something you know, like a password; something you have, like a chip or a mobile phone; something you are, like a voice print, an iris scan, or a fingerprint. So 2 factors is generally considered pretty secure. if you use two factors to identify somebody. And the what you are, the fingerprint scan and the voiceprint scan is a bit too much to go for on a trading network where, you know, we're not going to say to people, scan your eyeball before you can get into RapNet. But what we are going to do is introduce two-factor authentication using SMS messages to your cell phone. So in the coming weeks and months, what's going to happen on RapNet is when you log in, you're going to have to register your cell phone one time, and you'll get a 6-digit code SMS to your cell phone, which you then have to put into the website when you're logging in with your password. And only those two things together will allow you in. That way, we can secure against people breaking into RapNet because they know your password and impersonating you. You'll only obviously be asked to put in the 6-digit code on your computer once because we assume that nobody unauthorized can get to your computer. You know, you don't hand out your computer to thieves and scammers, which means, by the way, that if you're hacked and the scammer is controlling your computer, it's an issue. So you'll be able to decide if you always want to get the 6-digit code because you want to be really secure every time, or if on that particular computer it's okay to just do it once and then we remember who you are. So two-factor authentication would be the first foray that RapNet's making into securing your identity to make sure that you are who you say you are and that your identity is secure. The reason that we need to go into two-factor authentication is for the second big investment that we've made, which is secure communications and secure trading through the RapNet site. One of the big insecurities that we're finding is email. It's very convenient. People love to do business through email. It's extremely insecure. And like I said to you, $400,000 plus has been lost in the last few months from people getting false emails from thieves. So we're going to be bringing the communication inside of RapNet. It will be in the communication center. The emails you get will just be notifications saying you have a notification waiting for you inside RapNet. And all the record of the negotiations, you'll be able to do everything inside of RapNet through the communication center. This is going to be rolled out over the next few months. The first thing you're going to see will be a communication center. Here's like a sneak preview where anybody who contacts you about buying or selling a diamond will be in the communication center, and you'll be able to chat with them almost like a WhatsApp type or a Facebook Messenger type of discussion. You want to do the deal? Yes. Which diamond? This diamond, that diamond, 36 below. No, I can give you 38. Okay. You know, and then mazal. So there'll be a history here, and it will be in RapNet and not via emails, and it will be secure because your password is secured by two-factor authentication. So RapNet, which is already the safest network to trade in, is going to get safer. We're going to be securing the identity of everybody logging in with two-factor authentication, and all communication for trading will be happening via the secure site and not via insecure emails. That's really what I had to say to you today. I wanted to tell people what kind of frauds are happening out there, and let you know what RapNet's doing to try and combat it, and how we're going to try and help the industry. And with that, I want to introduce you to Troy Wilkinson, who's from Axiom Cyber Solutions, actually right here in Las Vegas. I'll just give Troy a little introduction from his bio. He began his career serving, I hope I'm right, he began his career serving as a law enforcement officer, commanded a joint terrorism task force, and was a lead bomb investigator, including violent crimes and a homicide detective. But his main achievement was investigating and prosecuting electronic crimes, including child pornography. He was then recruited by the US State Department and was a top US cyber investigator seconded to the United Nations and the European Union. And when he did various things there, which he'll tell you about, but he basically led investigations into political corruption, organized crime, war crimes, financial crimes, and terrorism. And then when he came back to the US, he co-founded this company, Axiom Cyber Solutions, which deals with automated, intelligent, self-healing cybersecurity platforms, it's a lot of words there, to help America's business fight against cyber criminals. So with that, I'd like to introduce Troy. He'll talk to you a little bit about cybersecurity and the state of the world and what can be done. And then when we finish that, we'll invite our panel up here for questions and answers and discussion. Troy, I just have to find your PowerPoint to help you out. There you go. Welcome.
Is this one on? Okay, great. Thank you, Savile. I appreciate that introduction. And actually, you have already covered a lot of the things that I was going to talk about. So again, to my background, I started in law enforcement and investigating cybercrimes and electronic fraud and forgery for over 20 years, and prosecuted some of the largest cases on a global scale. We investigated, I led a team that investigated Slobodan Milosevic's team of war criminals in Kosovo, Macedonia, Bulgaria, Bosnia, and the former Yugoslavia. We were able to successfully prosecute those generals that are still alive today and get convictions on those criminals. There was U.S. Cyber Command across Eastern Europe all the way going back into the 90s. We think of cybersecurity as kind of a new thing because it's in the media every single day, but it's been around for a long time and it's going to continue to grow. My belief is that the cybersecurity side of things is going to be our biggest threat in the coming years, as we saw with WannaCry. ISIS and terrorism is a tremendous concern, and they are turning to cybersecurity or cyber crimes to help fund their initiatives and also communicate with their operators around the globe. So this is a very intertwined, interesting subject. I understand that everybody in the room is probably not a cybersecurity expert, so I'm going to keep this on a very non-technical type of level, but basically want to help understand that we are facing a crisis, and that crisis is the fact that hackers are gaining ground exponentially, thank you, on us, and we're not training enough young people to take those careers on to tackle those problems. So we have about a 1.5 million job gap in the community right now around the globe for cybersecurity professionals. So I work with UNLV as an adjunct professor, and we're trying to really foster careers in cybersecurity and help our young folks understand the need that is out there for that. But what I'd like to talk about today is some emerging threats and trends, things that we see as a cybersecurity community that are going to be plaguing American businesses or global businesses, and some of the things that you can do to be aware of them and also to prevent them. And phishing is high up on the list, so that is one thing that you'll hear me talk about a lot. And as Savile said, just being connected to the internet makes you a target, and a lot of people don't understand that hackers are constantly scanning the internet for vulnerable systems and vulnerable people, and they're looking for numbers, not names. A lot of businesses that are hacked are not targeted specifically because they are the business they are. They're targeted because they were vulnerable or they had something that allowed them to be hacked. So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, hackers are scanning the internet. They have automated scans that are looking for vulnerable systems, and they are able to exploit those systems. Great example is the WannaCry ransomware that attacked the world about 2 weeks ago. So there was a very specific vulnerability that was known to the NSA community for years. It was kept secret. It was leaked to the world by the shadow brokers about 6 months ago. Microsoft worked very quickly to patch that vulnerability. However, that patch came out in March, and security professionals around the globe were very slow to apply that patch. So in May of this year, within 48 hours, 250,000 victims were claimed in 150 different countries, $4 billion in damages. And that is just because automated systems were able to identify the systems that are attached to the internet that were not protected from that specific vulnerability. So what we like to talk about is the fundamentals of cybersecurity. Things that you can do on a very low level to help make yourself not a target. It's just like physical security. So if you're in a terrorist incident, you want to make yourself as little of a target as you can. You want to get away from the attacker. You want to get behind a barrier. You want to protect yourself. And it's the same thing in cybersecurity. You want to reduce the avenue of attack. These are the biggest threats that we see attacking the world today, emerging threats. Phishing is top of the list, as we talk about impersonating somebody's email and getting them to click on something they shouldn't or do something they shouldn't. You know, most people are logical and have common sense, or they like to think so, but a lot of times what we find out is these phishing schemes are getting very sophisticated and they're taking advantage of even IT people. One of the largest scams that came out in April this year found that 150 million IT professionals around the globe had been hacked by a very specific state-sponsored hacking group. And they were able to get into millions of customers here in the U.S. and across the globe simply because those IT guys fell for some very common schemes. Ransomware is something that you may or may not have heard of. It is obviously the largest cybercrime today. Over $1 billion last year was paid out in ransomware, and it's just basically a software that locks up your computer and asks you for money to unlock it. And they do this with Bitcoin, which is a digital currency that is untraceable. So now that the criminals have a way to get paid for their crimes that is not traceable, then they're they're executing on it a lot at a higher rate. Bitcoin today is around $2,200. So one Bitcoin in 2008 was about a fraction of a penny. Today, one Bitcoin is worth $2,200. So you can tell that there's a rise in the value of that digital currency, and people are making millions off that, if not billions. Distributed denial of service attacks, just to be aware of, not something that's going to hit your particular business most likely, but it attacks large companies, enterprises, and it's just basically a type of an attack that takes your site offline or prevents you from doing your job. If you can't get on the internet, how does that impact your customers, and how does that impact your business? Hackers use that to either hold you for ransom or take action against you because they don't like you. The Internet of Things is going to be another big topic in the coming years. We're seeing more and more devices that we own that are connected to the internet, so telephones, thermostats, refrigerators, televisions. Almost everything in our home and in our life is now connected to the internet, even our cars. And so as we go forward, we're going to see that Internet of Things be a very big vulnerability point. And hackers can compromise one of those things in your home, and they can pivot onto your home network or into your business network. So, it's great to have that technology. It's great to have those items to make your life better, but then just understand that they are also a point of entry. Things like heating and air conditioning units have automation that you can use your telephone to control the air at your office. But if hackers can compromise that system, they can get onto your customer network. They can find your payment card information. They can find your intellectual property. They can find things that you thought was private. So, as Saville said, people don't want to admit that they could be hacked. In fact, as a cybersecurity professional, our biggest obstacle is IT people. When we talk to companies, I just talk to the C-level or the board members because they have a fiduciary responsibility to their company. The IT guys never want to admit that they could have a problem. They don't want us to uncover what those problems could be, and as well as, they always take the stance that they're protected. It's either a head in the sand approach or it's just protecting my kingdom, but either way, we have a significant problem with that as well. Intellectual property theft, that is on the rise, and we have seen China for years and years trying to break into our systems to steal information on our products and our services and the things that make us or our business special. We see them reproducing those things over in China at a fraction of the cost and reselling them back to the United States. So these are some of the motivating factors, as well as the emerging threats that we're going to see grow in the coming years. And of course, there's state-sponsored cyber espionage. We all know about the Russian hacking of the DNC, whether that was state-sponsored or if it was just a group of Russian bloc nationals that were doing something for their country or love of country. We don't know, but North Korea has a very active unit that is hacking us every single day. China has an entire military unit. The APT-10 is their name. They are actively, every single day, 8 to 5 on their time, hacking into U.S. systems. This is just something that happens. President Obama met with the president of China to try to put a stop to that, but it's still going on every single day. So these threats aren't going away, and most people take the approach that I'm a small business, I'm not a target. Again, you're just a number to them. You may not be a specific target, but if you come up on their radar and you have something vulnerable, you could end up being a victim. Ransomware, as we've talked about, there has been a 6,000% increase in ransomware attacks over the last 2 years. It's FBI, as Saville mentioned, they just take reports on it basically now because they just can't prosecute it. They can't move fast enough. There's too many. There's over 4,000 attacks per day that are on record, and most of those attacks get paid anywhere from $300 to $25,000 in attacks. The WannaCry we talked about, that was a very fast-moving one because it was able to scan the internet and find people who hadn't patched yet. We see hospitals and schools be attacked. And why do you think that is? It's simply because they don't generally have the big budgets that enterprises do. They don't have the profit centers to pay for enterprise security solutions. So what we see is hospitals, schools, and those that are the most vulnerable being attacked and victimized by this cyber crime. There are so many ways that you can be infected with this malware or any other malware, whether it's a USB stick that somebody plugs into your computer at your office, if it's a rogue employee that downloads and puts something on your network, whether it's somebody who comes across your Wi-Fi, if you have a guest Wi-Fi. Generally, it's usually an email or in a Word document or a PDF that we see as the normal delivery mechanism, and that's simply because that hacker can be miles and miles away across the ocean. They don't have to have physical access to your systems. There are some things that you can do to protect yourself. Number one is to back up your data and make sure that you have that endpoint protection. Antivirus is crucial for having on your point of sale system, having on your PCs, something that is updated all the time. You know, there's probably 5 or 6 different antiviruses that are in the top 1%. They have a 99.9% detection ratio, and so people often ask me, what do I recommend? And I just honestly say that I recommend you have something that is constantly updated and that is centrally managed and monitored so that you can produce compliance reports from that. Network monitoring and a firewall. I don't know how many of you guys have a firewall at your location. You know, some IT folks don't even understand if they have a firewall, if they don't have a firewall, when it was last updated. The most important part about any cybersecurity device or approach is that it is constantly updated and monitored for threats and breach activity. If somebody's going to get into your systems, you want to know about it as soon as they are trying to knock down the door. Now, we can't prevent every attack. There's no silver bullet in cybersecurity, but you can certainly know what's going on and be able to stop it quickly. You don't want them to be like Target or Sony or Home Depot, all of which were in their systems for more than 6 months to a year. So those hackers had over 6 months to gain intelligence, take customer data, and infect your systems further. We had a school in Southern California that was hit with ransomware. Even though they had good backups, it took them over 8 hours to restore their data. So the school's parents found out about it, the teachers were impacted, the school was impacted. So the most important thing here is that you have good backups. You have to have something else in place that is detecting for these type of malwares. Ransomware is no different than any other malware we've seen in the past. In fact, it uses the same type of algorithms and engines to infect our computers. It's just the behavior of what it does is different. So the great example here is that this WannaCry makes itself known. The ransomware, it makes itself known. So 250,000 victims in 48 hours, they knew about it because it locked their system and presented them with a message. You are infected. How about the millions of computers that are actually infected that the virus doesn't tell you about? And so they are using different malwares like keyloggers and ways to steal your data that you're unaware of. It's very important to have those updates in the antivirus as we talk about. Really quickly, phishing schemes. This has been, going back to the exact same speech that Seville gave us, that it started off with the Nigerian print scheme and all the things that we knew in the past were wrong. There was great misspellings, there was poor grammar, all that stuff that we have been taught to look for. But now it is so real, it is so legitimate looking that everybody's falling for it, even security professionals. For instance, in the John Podesta email hack, his IT guy was fooled with a phishing email. And so, it looked legitimate, and the IT guy said, yeah, that's a legitimate email, go ahead and respond to it or click on it. So they are so good, and this is where they're winning the war against us. We have to be vigilant, we have to use common sense, and we have to make sure to look for things that are out of the normal. Look for spelling errors, look for the difference in the name of the email, look for the transposed letters. That happens quite a lot. Bank of America had a very large phishing scam going out to their clients where they just transposed the letters in the word of, and it fooled a lot of people. A lot of people lost a lot of money. So with these phishing emails, there's always a sense of urgency. They want to get you to act quickly before you detect what's happening. They generally say there'll be repercussions if it's not handled quickly. This goes back to the whaling that Saville mentioned. They're trying to get your CFO or your accounting team to wire money somewhere. Generally, the CEO is not available. These guys are doing their homework. They're doing their social engineering homework. They're watching the news. They're talking to your sales team. They're asking the right questions to know that your CEO is going to be out of town on a business trip for a week. They're going to know that, what's going on in the business. They do dumpster diving if they're local. And so it's no longer, something that we can ignore or think doesn't happen to us. We just have to be very vigilant and use common sense. Hackers are canvassing the situation. They follow your social media. Your company probably has a good social media presence. A lot do. They have a blog. They have a Facebook page. People know what's going on. And so the hackers are using this information against us when they call in and trying to gain information on what they can do to steal money or goods from us. Phishing prevention. There's a couple of really great companies out there that will test your employees. If you're concerned about phishing, there's a couple of companies like KnowBe4 and PhishMe that will send targeted phishing emails to your employee base, and they'll give you reports back on how many people clicked on them. It's a good way to keep your employees on their toes, because if they know they're going to be tested, they're going to be looking a lot harder at these emails. Again, your anti-spam filters and the company email, make sure that you're using something to scan those emails for viruses and malware. And then there's something called a blacklist technology. So this blacklist technology is either a hardware device or a software device that blocks URLs that are known to be bad, malicious, and so on. So there's millions of URLs on that list, and it's updated every half an hour. So you can plug that into what you're doing now, so your mail service will catch some of that stuff before it hits you guys. There was a hotel casino right here in Las Vegas off the strip that was hit with a phishing scam, and the hackers were able to pivot from that email address into the point of sale system. They were in that system for over 6 months. Customer information was compromised. It took, once it was made known to the casino, they had to take their whole payment card system offline for a couple of days. It impacted them tremendously, not just having to monitor the credit of the people who were impacted, but also taking the casino hotel payment system offline. So the hidden impacts of a cyber attack are great. There's case studies I could go on, but I want to get to some of these things like the IoT. I don't know how many of you guys have camera systems in your shops or something that is connected to your phone. Anything that you can access from the internet that's touching the internet from your business is considered an Internet of Things device. We're going to see more connected devices as we go forward, and we're going to see more vulnerabilities around these. The manufacturers of these devices are so fast to get to market because they want to be the next shiny thing that makes a viral impact. But what they're not paying attention to is security. Some of these devices have hard-coded username and passwords that you can't change. So there are some things that you have to understand with everything that's in your house that is connected to the internet, in your business that's connected to the internet. Change the default username and passwords. Make sure that you have a firewall at that location so that it can prevent people from getting on your network. A lot of times if hackers can't get on your network, they can't access your IoT devices. That's that. We have those things everywhere. So Gartner thinks that there's going to be about 20 billion devices by 2020. There's currently about 6.5 to 7 billion already online. The IoT is the new battlefield for us. So if you think about the playbook that the hackers used to get into our systems, it used to be email, used to be other means of getting in. Now it's the easy target, which is the IoT. Find something that's insecure and take advantage of it, and then pivot into the network. So now boundaries disappear, everything's connected to the internet. It used to be, you had one thing connected to the internet, and that was your router. Now the devices inside your business are connecting and talking on the internet, and you don't even know it. So you have to have a way to monitor that and protect those devices. So just assume that they're insecure out of the box. Make sure that you change any usernames or passwords. Keep an accurate inventory of all the devices on your network if you can. If you have an IT guy, if you have an outsourced IT guy, whoever it is, have them present you an inventory of everything that's on your network that's talking to the internet. You may be surprised. A lot of our customers are surprised to learn how many things they have online. A constantly updated firewall is required, and also antivirus is required. Those are fundamentals that you should have no matter what. University was attacked using their IoT devices. Over 5,000 connected coffee machines and Coke machines were used to launch a network attack, and it took the college offline for 2 weeks because they couldn't identify where the attack was coming from. So I just want to leave you with this. This is a cyber attack response. Actually, the next slide is the last one, but what do you do if you're attacked? What is your first response? As Sebel mentioned, people want to ignore it and not talk about it. They don't want their customers to think something bad has happened, but I think it should be exactly the opposite. You need to be able to contain and eradicate it. You have to be prepared for it to happen in the first place, and you got to put something in place to monitor your systems. This is the key that people are not doing today. They're not monitoring for these attacks. We have no way of knowing if I have been hacked, until somebody comes and tells me that, hey, I got a fraudulent email from you. We need to know it before our customers know it. We need to be able to detect it and analyze it and make sure that we can stop it, be able to contain it. And the one big thing is that once it's on your system, that malware likely has other malwares that it has come with that has given it persistence, meaning that if you erase it from one machine, it's somewhere else in your system. So eradication is very difficult. You need to have a professional that can come in and scan your systems and help you make sure that whatever was infected is gone. And then there's the post-incident analysis. It's always good in cyber hygiene to figure out how this happened and how we prevent it in the future. and then document that for your future teams. We see a lot of times people come and go in the IT arena, so they don't pass on that tribal knowledge to the next person. So they miss a lot of these things that you may have already encountered that you don't want to encounter again. And lastly, I would leave you with this. These are the fundamentals. So when it talks about cybersecurity, the upcoming emerging threats, this could be if you're a 5-man shop or if you are a 5,000-man shop. You have to have these things in place. This is the fundamentals. You can literally spend millions of dollars on cybersecurity protections, but these are the fundamentals that you must have and that every company must have to start with. This is where you build your cybersecurity protections up. And so endpoint protection is simply that antivirus. It can be a Kaspersky, it could be Trend, Bitdefender, WebRoot, any one of those top 5 that have that 100% or 99.9% detection ratio. Make sure it's always updated and monitored and managed. A lot of times in businesses we find that the antivirus is just singly installed on different machines. There's no way to tell which is out of date and so on. So make sure it's centrally managed. Edge protection, that is very simply a firewall, something that is always updated, something that is monitored for intrusions. Network monitoring is something that simply says, this is normal behavior on my network and this is not. Something that can find those anomalies. And then make sure to back up your data. If you have a website, if you have an on-premise server, if you have local information, you just want to have some place offline that you back up that data to, so that if the building burns down or if, God forbid, the server online fails and you lose everything, it's a very simple backup and restore procedure. And make sure you have redundancy. Eliminate those single points of failure. So in everything in your business, make sure you have 2 of everything, so that if the power goes out, you have redundant power, like a battery backup. If the internet goes out, maybe you have a 3G LTE card, something that can eliminate the single points of failure that may plague the business. So that is all for me. I want to say thank you. Is there any questions real quick before we go on to the panel discussion? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we'll have a quick panel discussion for those who made the effort to attend. And if we have questions for Troy or for me or for any of the panel, this would be a good time to ask it. So what I'm going to ask is for the panel to just come up and take their seats. Tiffany, I know you have to go quite soon. Is that somebody has to go quite soon? So do you want to speak first?
Oh, okay, sure. Do you want me to stand here or sit down?
No, sit,
Okay.
sit, rather, it's easier.
Oh, sit, okay. I think this is me. Oh, thanks. Is this me? Yeah. Okay. Hi. I had a completely different set of things to talk to you about, because I'm so used to talking about the compliance issues we see, which now seem very sweet and charming, with one person trying to deceive you on one small transaction. But what we're talking about today is a bit more nefarious and a lot darker. At the JVC, we're lawyers, and we help with mostly jewelry compliance issues, which actually stretch into international trade, IP, all kinds of interesting things. But on this topic that we're talking about today, I will just quickly say, it seems like it crosses a lot of different industries. We're really talking about this broader criminal activity. One thing that we haven't touched on yet that you might want to think about is not only your own information, but any kind of customer database or any kind of customer information you're holding that's financial or that's even just email addresses. You're going to want to really be thoughtful about how you store that information and who might be able to access that information, and to know as quickly as possible, as has been said, when that has been compromised. You certainly don't want to lose your customer confidence or have a lawsuit. If you have customers who are in other countries, there are much, much more, especially in the EU, stringent requirements around how you hold their information. So you might want to be really thoughtful about those privacy issues and how they relate to some of this stuff beyond just yourself. And I would just reiterate we're the Jewelers Vigilance Committee, so I love that the word vigilance was up there, to just really use your common sense and your vigilance. Trust your gut. If something seems too good to be true or seems a little off, to follow up on that by making the phone call or doing a little bit of research. Just remember that anyone you're dealing with does have a lot of obligations under the FTC, and there are some red flags beyond just your general queasiness. If there aren't enough sort of disclosures, like if you're looking at a colored stone and there's sort of nothing about treatment or not treatment, things that are supposed to be there, sales receipts that don't have enough information on them, even something as simple as if sellers have an obligation for their mobile and their desktop websites to be very similar and for disclosures to be very clear on both. So if you see a lot of discrepancy there, that could be a red flag for you. If there are any reviews that seem fake or paid for, that might be another red flag that you're dealing with someone nefarious. Lastly, I'll just say, please, and this speaks to what was said earlier too, please don't be ashamed or embarrassed if something like this happens to you. It happens to all of us on some degree or another. And I think the only way that we're going to be able to shut some of these things down is to work together. Our silence really only shields the bad actors. And you can contact us at the JVC. We have a very robust mediation practice if you're dealing with a smaller sort of deceptive one-on-one transaction. If you've been the victim of a larger scam and this sort of large criminal activity, we have access to the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FTC, various DAs and various attorneys general, the State Department, as well as contacts overseas in other countries. And we would be happy to help you report this and try to seek some justice. And we would love to know and be able to track some of the trends of how these things are going down so we can all work together to shut it down as soon as possible. So thank you.
Sure. This is on? Oh. I'm Tony Capuano. I'm from the Jewelers Board of Trade. And, we're a credit reporting and collection agency exclusively for the jewelry industry. We're member-owned. And, part of our mission is to educate. And as part of that, scams have become more and more popular, and we have had a number of them reported to us. Maybe not in the same number that you have reported to Rappaport. They fall pretty much into the cases where someone's masquerading as your vendor, asking you to send a payment that he's not your vendor, asking him to send a payment that's going to go to China somewhere into his bank account. And a greater number, chiefly in the Southeast, where someone masquerades as your customer and asks you to send a piece of jewelry, but don't send it to the home office. We're opening a new store, send it to the new store because we need it immediately. We've seen a fair number of those cases. What we're trying to do is just educate our membership. We send out blasts every week on different topics. A fair number of those blasts are examples of recent scams and what you can do to prevent being a target yourself or being successfully scanned. Ask questions, always verify. Call up your vendor, call up your customer, make sure that where they want you to send the product, or did they indeed order product? Are they just, or are you just being scammed? So verify is what we tell our customers, and we just try to give them as many examples of scams that are current, because if it's been tried once and it's been successful, you can rest assured it will be tried again. And we don't want our members to be victims of those scams. And we've also worked with law enforcement, encouraged our members to report those scams so that law enforcement has a sense for the magnitude of the problem. Again, particularly in the Southeast, in our experience.
Yeah, I've also seen most predominantly in the Southeast is where we're getting the reports in the US from. And the international reports are predominantly Indian suppliers with customers all over the world. So it kind of dovetails with what you're saying. Ronnie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Ronnie VanderLinden. I'm president of the Diamond Manufacturers and Importers Association of America. as well as the International Diamond Manufacturers Association. So first of all, Salvo and Troy, thank you for having all of us here to speak to you. Don't know how much more I can add because this was excellent, an excellent overview of what's going on. But what I can add to everybody, first of all, number one, if it doesn't pass the smell or the taste test, beware. And that is your first. Your instincts are usually pretty good. But beyond that, I thought, and this is really going to be interesting for all of you because it's happened to me. I changed banks, as you well, or many of you won't know here, but Bank Leumi that I banked with for 25 years ceased operations in the United States for the diamond and jewelry. So they spoon-fed me to TD Bank. I met a wonderful bank officer, vice president of TD, is a gentleman by the name of George Barreto. Now, I'm a fairly new account, probably less than a year. And I get at 8:54 a.m. on January the 13th, 2016, an email from George Barreto, forwarded to me. And it says, it was originally sent to George with my email. Good morning, George. I need you to make a wire transfer of the amount $68,750 US to a company. Will you be able to get this out today? Thanks, Ronald VanderLinden, President Diamex Inc. Now, first of all, I don't know that I'd ever signed my name Ronald VanderLinden. I'd go by Ronnie, and most people know. Well, he gets this, and I get a text from him and said, did you look at your emails yet? And have a look, did you send this to me? Well, what he did, in fact, is send a reply to this gentleman, Ronnie, call me. I get a phone call from George, and I said, I absolutely did not, but let me just see what's going on in the office. The gentleman that started this email chain sends an email back to George. George, as usual, I'm really busy, but I'll give you a call after 4 o'clock. Please get the wire out, it's really important. He's just not, and I mean, to this day I thank him, he's just not convinced, and again, we get on the phone and said, nobody from the office sent this email to you, it's not for us, it's a scam. I notified Dan McCaffrey from the FBI that we work with as well, and a couple of guys, and he says, oh, they're only hitting your industry now? Was the reply. Well, I, of course, send it out to the membership, which Rappaport is one of our members of the DMIA. I send out beware, and I send out a very nice, short but sweet, be careful, this scam is going on, it just happened to me. Well, we follow up and we have a general board meeting and a general membership meeting right after, several weeks later, and I'm up there, and I'm speaking to our colleagues, and I reminded them of the scam that's going on here. Well, one of our very large members, and I don't mean by size, I mean by one of our very large members goes, I can't believe it, I'm kidding you not. I can't believe this just happened, we lost the exact amount. What happened is this email went through, it went to there because they have an accounting department, they sent the money, and the money was gone. And I said to him, don't you look at your emails? I get so many emails. I said, well, if you would have paid attention.
He thought it was a scam, what you were saying.
You would have seen it's a scam, but they sent it out. And what happens is they are getting so sophisticated out there today because they can Google all the information, especially if you're presidents of associations are involved in the industry politically quite a bit, or your companies and you're on social media. They learn everything about you. And then they find out how they got George Barreto. I mean, I didn't seem that I was hacked. I think that somebody, and this is what we believe, you can certainly answer that question, but we believe that they hacked into somebody that I may have sent an email to and got the information on me, and then did it with George. Just recently, another example is I had somebody, you talked about the boxes out there and shipments. I had a gentleman up at my office 2 weeks ago, and he says, I just have to drop ship a package to some guy in Florida. You know, one of my clients asked for it, and it just came out of a strange conversation. I said, "You're drop shipping what?" I said, "Well, they asked me to put it to send it to one of their customers." I said, "Did you check that it's the company that called you?" And it wasn't. He picks up the phone, he starts panicking because it was all out. Rappaport wrote about it, you guys had it out there, it's been out. You can't make these things up. A really great guy, he went white. He tried stopping the shipment because he sent it with one of our facilitators in the building, you know, to go back and grab it. It was not. So all the examples that were given by Sal and given by Troy actually happen. It happens to all of us. And being, you know, one of these guys besides obviously a president of a couple of associations, I also have my own company. I'm a manufacturer. So I get the rough scams that are out there. You know, people saying that they have this available, D to G colors, VVS's, and the pricing and the whole thing. And it went from being really not so sophisticated to being incredibly sophisticated in the information that they send. But you know, if you're in the industry and you're doing this, it's not possible. So my only advice that I can share with all of you is beware. Just if it doesn't pass the smell and taste test, as I said earlier, make that phone call. Don't push that button. Just be really diligent.
Thank you. Okay, well, we've got a lot of issues going on here. We've got, you know, we're just trying to do our business. We're just trying to do what we're good at. We've got compliance issues on the one side, legal issues on another side, fraud hitting us head on, and all we want to do is you know, what we're good at. It makes it very difficult. Ronnie, thank you for those remarks, because I think it brings it home when somebody, you know, actually, you know, somebody's up here who actually had it happen to them. We've all said, in sort of different ways, educate, tell people about it, and we've all said, be vigilant. Do you think there's anything, and this could be to anybody on the panel, do you think there's anything that we can do as an industry to educate better or to centralize this kind of message? Because, you know, I know that I'm talking to my constituents, you talk to yours, Is there maybe a way we can have some sort of, we can come together as an industry to I don't think that we can do much on the deterrent side. I don't think we can really stop this from happening. But we can at least stop people from being victims, or at least reduce the chances of being victims. Do you think there's anything we can do together?
I do.
I think this presentation was great, but people are very busy. Talk louder. People are very busy. The show's going on. Everybody has a lot of commitments. Something like this, put on a webinar that would be available on your website for the education of your members.
Right. Well, I will say two things. We're broadcasting this on Facebook Live as it is, so there are a few more members in the audience. You can wave to, you know, hi, Mom. We're also obviously recording this, and we'll put that on our website, and we'll make it available to, you know, anybody who wants to put it on their sites too. Certainly, if anybody wants the slides from my presentation, from your presentation, drop a business card here, and we'll email you the slides. That's fine. I think I'm going to, you know, from my point of view, yeah.
Sorry. No, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make one comment. I do think that one thing that we can do for everybody out there, including the entire industry, is almost have a blotter for our industry about these scams, so that the industry magazines publish this and continue to publish it each time. So, for instance, JBT, we get the weekly announcement that should be in, you know, right up there about the scams. JVC, when they send out the alerts in the newsletters. DMIA, the same thing. But beyond that, National Jeweler, IDEX Magazine, Rappaport Magazine, JCK Magazine, all the magazines out there should have some sort of blotter and working together so that everybody is informed. That's the best way.
It's a good idea.
Because it's amazing how many people don't know about these scams out there. You'd think, you know, we're all in the midst of it here. You would think that everybody knows about it. You're all sharing this information, especially with social media today and all. But no, they don't. And people, time and time again, you know, the ransomware happens all the time. And Tiffany and I were speaking earlier as this was going on. I said, I don't open anything anymore that I don't recognize an address. I don't care what it is. I just don't open it. because too many of our colleagues and family and friends have all, at one time or another, had a problem.
I think, do you want
I just want to add one thing
to take
to
the...
that. So to that point, opening and clicking, there's a great website I just wanted to bring up. It's called totalvirus.com, Total Virus. You can check any URL, you can check any file, excuse me, virus total, I have it backwards, but you can check any file, virustotal.com. So this is a free way that you can check any file or link to see if it is malicious. It scans it over 100 different antiviruses and anti-malware engines, and it looks at history to see if that has been, and that just goes to your point. We are inundated with information today. That's a big problem. We see millions of data points every single day. The human brain is an amazing, amazing engine, and so that's the real problem, is that people are making mistakes because we're just inundated with overwhelming amounts of information. So it's a little bit of just not paying attention to the small details that we used to be able to pay attention to. But to the point of how do we solve this issue, I think it's education. Educating our client base, educating our employees, educating our partners. And that can happen through certification, maybe a certification track, something that you have to take and get certified in. Just an idea, some education that encourages participation in doing so.
Yeah, I think I'd like to pause now and just open it up to questions from the audience, to anybody. I'm going to take one of these. There's a microphone up there. If you wouldn't mind just grabbing the microphone before asking a question, just so we can capture it forever on tape.
Hi, I've got a couple of questions. One for Troy, as far as two-factor authentications, and also the cell phone now, the iPhone being able to have your fingerprint. So if I, for example, use a program like Dashlane, or there's other ones like OnePass that keep your passwords, because they were saying, change your password and make them stronger. Am I going to be protected by using, for example, an iPhone with a fingerprint that lets you into Dashlane and so on and so forth down the road?
Absolutely. To answer that somewhat easily is yes, two-factor authentication is always the best way to go. There was one company recently, it's called OneLogin, that just was hacked. They are basically a password vault for people who want to have all their passwords in one place. I use another one called KeePass, which is a great way to manage all of your multiple passwords, because I don't use the same password anywhere. In fact, all of mine are complicated. I couldn't remember them if I wanted to. But OneLogin was hacked, and over 15 million customers lost all of their passwords across all of their sites. So it is a great way to do it. Just make sure that you keep up with the main password for your password vault, as well as the company that you use. Keep up with the news. If they get hacked, you have to change everything.
Any other questions?
I've heard from some people that, especially when you browsing the internet and you're looking, for example, for pictures, and people are pulling them off and just dragging and dropping, can you be hacked that way with a virus being embedded into an image?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, ISIS is using steganography today to move encrypted messages around that are hidden in 1 pixel of an image. So images are often used as delivery mechanisms for malware and viruses, and they've gotten so uniquely suspicious about the way that they handle actions on the link. So now a link in an email, if you just hover your mouse over it, it could simply take action that way as well. So suspicious emails are getting very, very more sophisticated, and the hacks and the way that they deliver this malware is getting sophisticated.
Are we moving away from email? Are people moving away from email because of this?
I think so. Over 50% of the internet is now encrypted. So you see HTTPS versus HTTP, which is great. I think we need to get to an encryption, and we need to have email encryption. It's a very important thing. There are companies out there like Mimecast, which is a email security company that can protect you both in transit and at rest. And so I think that we need to really get smart about how we leverage email. It is probably one of the first protocols that was ever created, along with the internet, TCP/IP, and email protocols. It needs to be renovated. It needs to be innovated. It needs to be secured.
Yeah, I must say the Rapport group uses Mimecast for its emails, and we still get phishing emails. We still get emails purporting to come from Martin Rappaport. So while these companies are very good, the thieves are always trying to get one step ahead. So I think, like we said before, there's no silver bullet. Do what you can to protect yourself. You must do what you can to protect yourself. However, you've also got to be vigilant. There's that word again. Okay. Do you guys have any resources available, maybe online or anywhere, that you'd like to tell everybody about, where they can learn more about these things, or how to protect themselves? Do you have any, on your website that you want to mention?
On our website, we do have other sources for cyber protection.
Just take the microphone.
Sorry. Our website does have links to other sources that you can, protect yourself with cyber protection. And I would recommend everybody investigate cyber insurance, because they help you develop a cyber security plan as part of, they're insuring you. They want to make sure they don't have to pay a claim if you're well protected. So
that's a great idea.
I would really recommend that for everyone to explore.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is John Costello. I'm publisher with Rappaport, so I'm very interested in communicating many of these topics to our readership, our subscriber base. We've covered this issue before, and we'll continue to do so. I'd just like to ask, I suppose, Ronnie, Tony, and Tiffany, in terms of us proactively having things like this and communicating through Rappaport magazine or through RapNet, that's kind of us pushing, but within the community, within the industry, what levels of awareness do you think people have about this? Do you think it's widely known now, or are people still naive and not really seeing it, that it's a problem, and not proactively educating themselves on the matter?
So it is widely known, and people are, I don't like to call anybody naive, but people make mistakes. And what we were talking about earlier when I said you'd be surprised how many people don't realize, for instance, the banking scam or the box shipping scam, and so it's usually by word of mouth. And as I said earlier, the associations try to, when something happens to, in my case, myself, of course I send it out immediately to the membership so that they are aware of the different scams that are going on. It's the first thing we try to head off. The issue at hand is that I think you mentioned earlier, we all get so many emails per day, and I know I do. And you start going, and then all of a sudden, it's that you click on something all of a sudden, or you make that mistake. And that's where there's a lot of problems. People, again, we talk about the ransomware, and oh my gosh, why did I open that up? I just now, and I thank you very much, dragging a picture, you know how many times we go into online to look for a picture, and now I find out that it's embedded? Might explain why my computer slowed down quite a bit when I've done things like this. I didn't know. So here, am I naive, or it's just that I didn't know? And you hear about it. We need to be more aware. It's just a changing world out there, and getting the information out there information is very quick these days. If something happens, we need to react to it immediately, and through your publication, through Rappaport, it's the best way to feed it. Put an alert out online and in the magazine. You're reaching out to how many tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people? When you do this, that's how we alert everybody. And you got to remember that as these scams go on, they get more sophisticated and they change it up. So it becomes more and more believable as time goes on. So we have to be aware of that as well. So I can only say, and I think my colleagues will agree, is, again, if it doesn't pass the smell or taste test, check into it.
Yeah, I think we're getting close to the time limit, so I just want to wrap up, and if there are any final questions, we'll take a couple more, but I just want to wrap up by saying a couple of things. First of all, as the world's changing, we've all become more secure in our physical locations. It used to be that you didn't have to put, bars on your window in your jewelry store, in the 50s. And now, we're putting alarm systems, we've got armed response. We know about smash and grab. We're getting better and better at preventing problems as they start arising, especially in the physical sort of, against thieves breaking in physically. When it comes to cyber threats like this, or email scams, which I wouldn't even call them cyber threats, because emails are kind of just a new communication way. We're not as good yet, and we're not as aware of the dangers yet, but we're getting there. The problem I think that we're all seeing, and I think Martin mentioned it in a different way, he talked about the rate of change increasing. The problem we're having now is that if I had to try and do a scam like the ones we've been speaking about years ago, I'd have to send out, physically with a stamp on each envelope and people would have a chance to respond, and it would be slower. And there's a chance to think about it, and you'd catch less people. Here, you can send out 1 million emails in a few seconds, and if only 1% of the people, even 0.25% of the people respond, you're doing okay. From a thief point of view. So like Ronnie said, we're getting bombarded with information. It's much faster. The break-ins happen without any physical trace, and it's getting more and more difficult. But the fundamentals stay there. The fundamentals are that if somebody came into your office and looked shifty and was asking the wrong questions and was trying to get a diamond or a piece of jewelry from you that just didn't make sense, you wouldn't give it to them. So now they're not physically coming into your office, but they're virtually coming into your office. But the fundamentals remain. Be aware, be vigilant, have procedures. When you have to break your procedures, only do so after looking carefully and having good reason to do that. The fundamentals of protecting yourself remain. The battlefield has moved a little bit, and it's a much faster game. But the fundamentals, of common sense, as much security as you can put up around yourself, making sure that you've got your staff educated, making sure that you're educated. Some of these websites that we heard about today for checking things, I've heard of for the first time. I also never knew that you could have drag and drop an image and suddenly you could infect your computer, and not only yours, but the network and everyone else who's in contact with you. So you can be aware, you can be vigilant, but you also have to learn, and you have to keep up with what's going on. So with that, unless there are any further questions, I'd like to, first of all, thank everybody for coming. As I said, it's... we broadcast this live on Facebook, so we've had a few viewers around the world. We're taking a video which we'll put up on our website after we've processed this and edited it. We'll make our slides available. Just drop off your business card for anybody who wants to get the slides. And if all of you here could please tell 10 of your best friends about what you learned here today, and tell them to come look at the slides so that the word can get out there. Because I used to run sessions straight after Martin about grading and GIA versus EGL versus IGI, and explain data. And there I'd get 100 people coming to listen, because there it was something that was very interesting. EGL. Here, it's not me. It couldn't happen to me. It happens to other people. It would never happen to me. Why should it? It happens to you. It could happen to anybody. And let's, as they used to say in an old TV program, Hill Street Blues, let's be careful out there. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Yes.